How much does it cost to travel to Paris? If you've been asking that question, this video might give you some answers. Hi, I'm Juhui. I started this channel to share some tips and my experience on how to have a memorable and exciting trip and how to become an avid traveler. And today in this video, I'd like to talk about the budget that doesn't break the bank nor ruin the fun. Quick heads up, the budget that I'm going to share today is optimized for mid-tier travelers, like standard travelers. You know, people like us. But don't worry if you're a luxury traveler or a budget traveler. This video can be still very useful. You can use this as a guideline or reference to plan where to spend more or where to save more. So without further ado, let's get into it. First of all, let's talk about flights. The rule of thumb of getting a good deal on airfares. Number one, you need to avoid traveling during the peak season, which is between June and August. And number two, you need to buy a ticket in advance. However, these are pretty general rules and they don't always apply to everyone. For example, if you have children in school, I'm sure the most ideal time for you to travel is during the peak season. And if that's the case, try to book flights as early as you can, like way in advance. Because as an early bird, you are almost always guaranteed to get cheaper rates and more options. On the other hand, if you have more unpredictable schedule and if you have a more spontaneous lifestyle, you can also take advantage of being a last-minute traveler. I know it sounds quite risky to plan an international trip last minute, but sometimes the best deals come to the last-minute travelers because airlines and hotels want to get rid of their unbooked rooms and seats. Now, let me talk about my own experience and how much I spent on flights. I traveled to Paris in September last year, which was right after the peak season, and I started to shop around for my flights about a month before the trip. And I found this non-stop round-trip ticket from New York to Paris for around $500 for economy class. And this flight included one red-eye flight going to Paris, which wasn't great. But for the price range they are always going for, it seemed impossible to avoid one red-eye flight. And if you're wondering if I had a jet lag, oh yes, I did. If you're curious what to do on the first day in Paris when you're feeling jet lag, please check out my Paris 7-day itinerary video in the link above. Typically, a round-trip ticket from New York to Paris would cost between $300 up to $800. So if you're seeing a price that is beyond this range, that is quite unusual. So you better make sure that you are not overpaying or you're not risking your life on an early trip flight. Seriously. And another cost you shouldn't forget to budget here is the transportation from and to the airport. I used Uber. The trip to the airport and back to my place in New York cost around $75 each time. And I pay around 50 euros in Paris to travel between the airport and hotel on Uber. We had 2 carry-ins which were free of charge, but then we had 1 luggage to check in which cost $35 each flight. The total expense related to airfares comes to be around $1,350 for 2 travelers. Now, let's move on to most essential part of planning, the accommodations. The cost of accommodations can vary dramatically, especially in a city like Paris. I'm sure you've seen some photos of bougie hotel rooms with a balcony open to an obstructed view of Eiffel Tower on Instagram, right? Those dreamy suites can cost around $1,000 per night. At the same time, you can stay in Paris for $50 per night if you don't mind staying in a youth hostel in a less desirable neighborhood. As for the mid-tier travelers like us, you can either stay in a boutique hotel or an Airbnb apartment in a downtown area of Paris for around $150 to $200 per night. I stayed both in a boutique hotel and an Airbnb apartment. Here are the reasons why I loved staying in a boutique hotel. Boutique hotels in general are cheaper than standard hotels because they don't come with full amenities. I mean, I don't really care for hotel amenities. If anything, I'd like to stay in a more vibrant neighborhood where I can just go out and stroll around day and night and just explore the city like a local Parisian. It's just 1 block away from a hotel. The good thing about boutique hotels is that they are mostly located in vibrant, trendy neighborhoods, such as Le Marais, where you can find diverse food and art galleries and chic shops and even landmarks. So if you're interested in staying in a boutique hotel in Paris, here's your quick tip. Search newly opened boutique hotels in Paris because they might have a special price for their grand opening. That being said, there's one downside with staying in a boutique hotel in Paris. Like any other buildings in Paris, boutique hotels have very small rooms, which aren't ideal for longer stays. Let's say if you are staying for more than 3 days in Paris, I think you are better off renting an Airbnb apartment in a quieter area of downtown in Paris. So you can have a more space and more privacy. And staying in an Airbnb apartment in a quieter downtown, such as Latin Quarter, really allows you to travel at your own pace. For example, you can have a cup of coffee in the morning in your pajamas before heading out to an intense adventure in Paris. And that's a great perk. The bottom line is, how much did I spend on both accommodations? Interestingly, the hotel and the Airbnb cost about the same. They were both around $150 per night. So my husband and I spent another $1,350 for accommodations. Next, let's talk about food. If you are traveling to Paris, you know that you will spend some money on food. Because if not Paris, where else? I mean, seriously. Of course, it doesn't mean you have to go out for every meal, but you definitely don't want to miss out on eating well while in Paris. So this is what we did. Our maximum budget for food was $100 per person per day. And I like to emphasize that it was the maximum budget. So we didn't always spend up to $100 a day. But this budget allowed us to eat pretty well. For example, we were able to eat at a restaurant with a glass of wine or a huge plate of oysters with a nice bottle of wine. And we were able to eat at a cafe. We would order a galette or savory crepes. And we also had some nice pastries and nice desserts all in one day. At the end of the day, we didn't feel like we had such a lavish trip, but at the same time, we were able to enjoy ourselves diverse French cuisine and delicious pastries and awesome wine that Paris has to offer. In total, we spent less than $1,800 for 2 people. Lastly, there will be some miscellaneous fees, such as museum fees and boat tour fees, local transportation, and etc. One question I got often asked was whether or not I bought the museum pass in Paris. And the short answer is I did not, because I didn't want to go to more than 2 museums while I was in Paris. I mean, this is kind of a hard-learned lesson for me. The first time I went to Berlin, I was just so enthusiastic about hitting all the museums, especially the Nazi ones. And of course, it was rewarding to learn all the history, but at the same time, I realized that all the memories and the knowledge started to get a little bit mixed up in my head. And I definitely regret that I didn't spend enough time outdoors. Unless you are a big museum goer or a huge history buff, I don't think you want to spend too much time in museums when you're in Paris. Another question that I got often asked was how I got around in Paris. I mostly used Uber because, to my surprise, Uber was almost the cheapest way to get around. Since I was staying in very convenient locations such as Le Marais and the Latin Quarter, most Uber rides cost us only like 6 euros. So that's like 3 euros per person. I think Subway might be cheaper than that, but considering the convenience of Uber rides, 3 euros per person was totally worth it. I also didn't move around a lot within a day. So once I arrived at the main area to explore, I walked around a lot. In other words, I didn't take Uber for like 5 times a day, but more like twice or 3 times a day. And this is why it is so important to make an itinerary for Paris trips, because Paris isn't small and you definitely want to minimize the moving distance throughout the day. That being said, if you haven't watched my 7-day Paris itinerary video, please do so because it will definitely help you plan your Paris trip better. Total amount I spent on these miscellaneous items was around $400 for 2 travelers. One thing I'm not going to go in details in this video, but something that you definitely want to consider in budgeting your trip is shopping. I mean, Paris is the best and the cheapest city to buy luxury goods. So I did it! So the total amount we spent on our 9 nights and 10 days Paris trip was $4,900 for 2 travelers. Do you think we spent too much or too little? Let me know in the comment below. Also, if you have any questions about Paris trip, feel free to comment below as well. If you found this video helpful, please make sure to subscribe to this channel and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss out on new travel videos coming every week. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.